After our argument, my daughter made me some coffee. Mom, drink this as a sign of reconciliation. It tasted strange. 5 minutes later, I realized something was wrong. You won't believe what happened next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I was in my home office reviewing quarterly expense reports when Mason walked in without knocking. That should have been my first warning. Chloe followed 2 steps behind him, her expression tight and anxious in a way that made my stomach clench. Mason carried a manila folder like it contained something precious. He spread papers across my desk, pointing at numbers with his index finger, talking fast about guaranteed returns and ground floor opportunities. His cologne was too strong in the small space. Nora, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. $45,000 gets us in on the ground floor. 6 months, we're looking at 30% returns, maybe more. I closed the folder and slid it back across the desk. My reading glasses came off slowly, deliberately. The conversation was finished. I've heard these promises before. The answer is no. Mason didn't move. Instead, he leaned against my desk, his hip pressing into the edge, invading the space I'd carved out for myself in this house I'd built with my own hands 30 years ago. We take care of everything around here. The yard, the maintenance, making sure you eat properly. This house, realistically, it's already ours in all but name. The words hit me like ice water. I stood up, my chair scraping against hardwood. This is my house. I built it. I paid for it, and you two have lived here rent-free for 2 years. Chloe's hand slammed down on the desk, not quite violence, but aggressive enough to make the lamp rattle. Her face flushed red from neck to hairline. You've always been like this, counting every penny, hoarding everything. We're your family, not some charity case. I gave you $30,000 last year. You spent it in 4 months and never told me what it went toward. That's not fair. We had expenses. You don't understand the pressure we're under. But I did understand. I understood that my daughter had become someone I barely recognized, and the man she married had accelerated that transformation. Mason's hand moved to Chloe's lower back, controlling, guiding her toward the door. The gesture was possessive in a way that made my skin crawl. Dad always said you loved that business more than us. I guess money is all you ever really cared about. He'd be ashamed of the woman you've become. I kept my voice quiet, steady. Your father would never say that, and you know it. They left together. Mason glanced back once, his expression unreadable, and then they were gone. The house settled into silence around me. I walked through the rooms that night, touching things. William's photograph on the mantel, his smile frozen in time. The banister I'd installed myself, sanding it until the wood was smooth as glass. Books on shelves, their spines cracked from reading. Each object was a piece of my life, evidence of what I'd built, what I stood to lose. Sleep didn't come easy. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan, watching shadows rotate in the darkness. Morning arrived cold and gray. I heard Chloe's footsteps in the hallway before I saw her face appear in my doorway. Her eyes were red, puffy. She'd either been crying or had done an excellent job making it look that way. Mom, can I come in? I couldn't sleep last night. I said terrible things. Things I didn't mean. You seemed to mean them at the time. She moved into the room, wringing her hands. I was stressed. Mason lost another contract, and I took it out on you. That wasn't fair. I sat up against the headboard, studying her face. She looked young suddenly, like the girl who used to bring me coffee in bed on Sunday mornings when she was 10 years old. Chloe, we need to talk about last night, about what Mason said. Please, Mom, just let me make it up to you. I made your favorite coffee just like you like it. 2 sugars, splash of cream. Consider it a peace offering. She led me downstairs to the kitchen where a cup sat waiting on a small tray with a napkin folded beside it. The ceremony of it felt deliberate, important. She handed it to me with both hands, and I took it, our eyes meeting over the rim. Drink up. It's getting cold. I held the warm ceramic, feeling its weight. Part of me knew better. Part of me wanted to believe my daughter was still in there somewhere, underneath the desperation and resentment. I took a sip. There's nothing to forgive, I lied. Chloe smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. She busied herself wiping down counters, organizing the dish rack, but her movements were jerky, nervous. She kept glancing at the microwave clock. I retreated to the living room with the newspaper, trying to focus on headlines that blurred into meaningless shapes. 20 minutes passed, then the room tilted sideways like the house had become a ship at sea. Nausea rose in my throat, hot and insistent. The newspaper slipped from my hands. I tried to stand, but my legs were made of water. I grabbed for the armrest and missed, my vision narrowing to a tunnel. The phone. I needed the phone. It sat on the side table, impossibly far away. I lunged forward, fell to my knees, crawled the last few inches. My fingers were clumsy, thick, but I managed to unlock the screen and press the numbers. 9, 1, what's your emergency? My tongue felt swollen. The words came out slurred, distant. I've been poisoned. I think, need help. Ma'am, I need your address. Can you tell me where you are? 4270 Mapler, Austin. The phone tumbled from my grip. Darkness pulled me down like drowning. My last thought before consciousness fled. Chloe, what have you done? Sound came first. A steady beeping, mechanical and insistent. Then sensation. Something plastic in my nose, a pinch in my left arm, sheets that felt starched and unfamiliar. My mouth tasted like copper and chemicals. I opened my eyes to white ceiling tiles and fluorescent lights that made everything too bright, too sharp. My head throbbed with each heartbeat. A nurse appeared in my peripheral vision, her scrubs covered in tiny cartoon cats. She smiled when she saw me looking at her. Ms. Bennett, can you hear me? Squeeze my hand if you can hear me. I squeezed. My grip felt weak. Where am I? You're at St. David's Medical Center. You were brought in by ambulance last night. How are you feeling? My head. Everything's foggy. What happened? She checked monitors, made notes on a tablet. The doctor will explain everything. I'm going to let him know you're awake. Time passed in strange elastic stretches. I examined the IV in my arm, the leads attached to my chest, trying to piece together how I'd gotten here. Then memory came flooding back like ice water. The coffee, Chloe's face watching me drink, the room spinning, the phone call. Dr. Mitchell arrived carrying a tablet, his expression serious in a way that made my pulse quicken on the monitor. He pulled a chair close to my bed and sat down heavily. Ms. Bennett, we need to talk about what happened to you. He turned the tablet so I could see the screen. Numbers, charts, medical terminology that meant nothing to me. His pen pointed at specific values. Your blood work came back with some concerning findings. I need to ask you directly. Did you take any sedatives yesterday? Sleeping pills? Anxiety medication? No, I don't take anything like that. Just blood pressure medication. That's what I thought. He tapped the screen. See this number here? That's 3 times the therapeutic dose. Ms. Bennett, your blood shows high levels of benzodiazepines and diphenhydramine. Someone put these in something you consumed. The words hung in the air between us. I heard them, understood them individually, but together they formed something impossible. Diphen, what does that mean? It means this wasn't an accident. The combination, the dosage, this was deliberate. Ms. Bennett, this was attempted poisoning. My hands clenched the bed sheet. I closed my eyes and saw Chloe handing me the coffee. Her smile that didn't reach her eyes, the way she'd watched the clock. My jaw tightened until my teeth ached. That's not possible. Who would? But I knew. Dr. Mitchell saw it in my face. Family? He asked quietly. I nodded, barely. Hospital protocol requires reporting suspected poisonings. Wait, can you give me some time? I need to be absolutely certain before I make accusations. Ms. Bennett, someone tried to kill you. I know, but if I'm wrong about who... I need to think clearly. Please, 24 hours. He studied me for a long moment, then flipped through screens on his tablet. I'm documenting everything, the timeline, the blood work, this conversation. If you change your mind or if anything else happens... He left the thread unfinished. You're lucky you called 911 when you did. Another 15 minutes at your age with your blood pressure. You understand what I'm saying? I understood I was supposed to be dead. He left me alone with that knowledge. I stared at the ceiling, counting tiles, processing what had happened. My daughter, my only child. She'd tried to end my life for what? The house, insurance money. Because Mason convinced her it was the solution to their problems. The anger that rose in me wasn't hot. It was cold, calculating, sharp as surgical steel. Later that afternoon, Chloe burst through the door like a hurricane of emotion. She rushed to my bedside, grabbed my hand in both of hers, pressed it to her cheek. Tears streamed down her face. "Mom, I came as soon as I heard." "Are you okay?" "What did the doctor say?" I let my hand lie limp in her grip. Spoke slowly with pauses like I was confused and exhausted. "Chloe, I'm all right. Just confused about what happened." "You collapsed. I found you and called 911. Well, the paramedics were already there. But I was so scared." Mason stood behind her, hands on her shoulders, but his eyes were on my face, scanning the monitors on the wall, the charts hanging at the foot of my bed. "Nora, did the doctors figure out what caused this? Was it your medication? We need to know so it doesn't happen again. They're still running tests. Something I ate, maybe, or a bad reaction. But they must have some idea. Did they mention your heart?" I watched his face as I answered. "No, nothing definite. Just need rest." Chloe squeezed my hand tighter. When I mentioned something I ate or drank, her grip tightened involuntarily, just for a fraction of a second. Mason's eyes flicked to Chloe briefly. I caught both reactions, filed them away. This is my fault. If I hadn't gotten upset yesterday, if we hadn't argued, the stress probably triggered this. It's not your fault. The lie tasted like ash, but it is. I said awful things. I've been a terrible daughter. Can you forgive me? There's nothing to forgive. Mason leaned forward. Well, the important thing is you're okay now. You'll be home soon and we'll take care of you. The emphasis on those last words made my skin crawl. Yes, home soon. We'll make sure you're comfortable. Whatever you need. I appreciate that, both of you. They stayed another 20 minutes, Chloe performing her grief and relief, Mason playing the supportive husband. When they finally left, I sat up straighter immediately. My weakness had been an act. I pulled out my phone, opened my notes app, and typed rapidly, Chloe, hand tremor, sweaty palms when I mentioned food or drink. Mason, probing questions about diagnosis. Both visibly relaxed when I claimed confusion. They don't know what I know. The nurse returned to check my vitals. I asked for my tablet. That night I didn't sleep. I searched for estate attorneys in Austin, reading reviews carefully. I needed someone aggressive, thorough, someone who specialized in estate litigation. The word weapon kept running through my mind. I wasn't looking for a lawyer. I was looking for a weapon. Chloe and Mason thought they could end my story. They thought I was just an obstacle between them and my assets. They'd tried to make me disappear. Instead, they'd created something far more dangerous. A woman with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. They wanted to play this game. I'd play it better. Not with rage or grief, but with cold, methodical precision. They tried to end my life. I was going to dismantle theirs, piece by piece, until nothing remained but consequences. The monitors beeped steadily in the darkness. A heartbeat. A countdown. The hunt was about to begin. The discharge nurse wheeled me to the hospital entrance while Chloe hovered like a nervous bird, asking questions about medication schedules and follow-up appointments. I played my part perfectly, moving slowly, gripping the wheelchair armrests, letting confusion cloud my face when she asked if I understood the instructions. Mason brought his truck around. I noticed his hand trembling slightly on the steering wheel. The ride home was thick with unspoken tension. Chloe drove my car with Mason following in his truck, checking the rearview mirror every few seconds to catch my expression. I stared out the window, watching Austin slide past, but my mind was calculating. Tomorrow morning I had an appointment downtown. Mom, are you comfortable back there? Should I adjust the air conditioning? I'm fine, just tired. Mason's voice from the passenger seat was carefully casual. The doctors really didn't say what caused it? Just a reaction, something like that. Can't remember all the medical terms. Chloe's response came too quickly. The important thing is, you're okay now. Home looked the same. My house built with my own designs, paid for with my own labor. Chloe had prepared my bedroom. Fresh linens, flowers on the nightstand, a water pitcher with condensation beating on the glass. The performance continued. She insisted I rest, brought lunch on a tray with a folded napkin. Mason checked in twice, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. I thanked them with appropriate weakness, watched them leave. Through the closed door, I heard their voices downstairs, muffled, urgent. Couldn't make out words, but the tone spoke volumes. Fear, anxiety, calculation. I waited until morning. Chloe left for her real estate office at 8:30. Mason drove off 20 minutes later for his supposed business meetings. I watched from my window until both vehicles disappeared. Waited 5 more minutes. Then I moved to my car with none of yesterday's hesitation, my body responding with the strength I'd been hiding. Downtown Austin traffic was manageable at this hour. Davis and Associates occupied the 7th floor of a glass building near the courthouse. The receptionist led me through wood-paneled corridors lined with law books and framed certificates. Margaret Davis's office smelled like leather and old paper. She was 58, gray-haired, sharp-eyed. She listened to my story without interrupting. The argument, the coffee, the poisoning, the hospital diagnosis, Chloe and Mason's transparent concern masking their terror. When I finished, she set down her pen and studied me. Ms. Bennett, what you're describing is attempted murder. Have you filed a police report? No. I want justice, not just punishment. I want them to lose everything they tried to steal. That's a different kind of justice. It requires patience, planning. I have patience, and I have something they don't, time to plan properly. Margaret outlined Texas estate law with clinical precision. No forced heirship for adult children, complete testamentary freedom. I could disinherit Chloe entirely, leave everything to charity if I chose, but we'd need documentation, evidence. She slid a business card across her desk. Brian Cole, former detective, now private investigator, best in Austin for this kind of work. His office was less polished, functional furniture, filing cabinets, computer equipment. Brian Cole was 45, weathered, cynical in the way cops and investigators become after seeing too much human ugliness. You think your daughter tried to kill you for inheritance? I don't think. I know. He didn't flinch. Financial background checks aren't cheap. We're looking at $2,000, maybe $3,000 for a comprehensive workup. Whatever it costs. I need to know everything. Most people in your situation just want enough for divorce court or civil cases. You're building something bigger. I'm building an airtight case. When I move, I want no questions left unanswered. I gave him names, dates of birth, social security numbers, the credit card account I'd co-signed years ago. He estimated 2 weeks for the full picture. Whatever they're hiding, I'll find it. I stopped at the hospital records department on my way home. 200 pages documenting my near death. Toxicology reports, physician notes, lab values. Dr. Mitchell's assessment was stark. Intentional poisoning with benzodiazepines and antihistamines in concentrations consistent with deliberate administration. I made 3 copies. One for Margaret, one for Brian, one for my safe deposit box. 2 days later, a security company van arrived. Chloe was at work. Mason was out. The technician was young, efficient, professional. This is a pretty comprehensive system for a residential property. I live with family members. I want to make sure my home is secure when I'm in my bedroom. The cameras were small, discreet, professional grade. Living room, kitchen, dining room, all legal in Texas. My property, common areas only. I tested each angle on my phone, adjusted positions, confirmed audio quality. Perfect. That night, I lay in bed monitoring the feed. Mason paced the kitchen, fist hitting the counter. Chloe sat at the dining table, head in her hands. I couldn't hear everything clearly, but fragments carried, "If she knows. Too late now. We need that money." Each word confirmed what my eyes already knew. 10 days after hiring him, Brian called. His voice was flat, professional. "Nora, the numbers are worse than you probably imagined. Total debt is approaching $200,000. I pulled out a notepad. "Break it down." Mason has $95,000 in business loans from failed ventures, $48,000 in credit card debt, $37,000 owed to private lenders at 18% interest. Chloe has $32,000 in credit cards. Monthly payments exceed their combined income by about $4,000. How are they even making minimum payments? They're not. 3 accounts are delinquent. They're juggling credit cards to pay credit cards. Classic debt spiral. Send me everything, every document, every source. The financial report arrived by encrypted email that evening. I spread the pages across my desk, highlighting key figures. 95,000. 48,000. 18% interest. The numbers told a story of desperation, of drowning, of people who saw me not as a mother, but as a solution to problems they'd created themselves. They hadn't tried to kill me out of hatred. They'd tried to kill me out of necessity. To them, I was worth more dead than alive, the house valued at $850,000, my savings, my assets. Dead, I represented salvation. Alive, I was just an obstacle. I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Not heartbreak, that required an intact heart. This was something else. Clarity, purpose, resolve. Chloe knocked on my door around 9. "Mom, do you need anything? Can I get you dinner?" "I'm fine, honey. Just resting. You've been in here all day. Are you sure you're feeling okay?" "Just need quiet." The hospital was exhausting. Hesitation in her voice. "Okay, but if you need anything at all, I know where to find you." After she left, I opened my evidence folders, medical records documenting the poisoning, financial reports showing their desperation, surveillance footage capturing their panic, legal documents from Margaret outlining my rights. I organized everything methodically, backed it up to cloud storage, created redundant copies. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was something else now. Something patient and strategic and dangerous in ways they couldn't comprehend. They'd wanted to play for my estate, to eliminate the obstacles standing between them and financial relief. They had no idea what they'd actually created. A woman who'd survived their worst, who knew their secrets, who held all the cards they thought they'd stacked in their favor. Tomorrow, I'd change my will. And then I'd show them what justice really looked like. Margaret Davis's conference room felt appropriately formal. Mahogany table, leather chairs, law books lining the walls. I sat at the head flanked by strangers whose impartiality would prove my competence. Sarah Chen, the notary, checked her supplies. Robert Walsh and Linda Martinez, professional witnesses hired through Margaret's office, reviewed their role. Neither knew me, which was precisely the point. Margaret placed 3 identical documents on the table, each bound with blue covers. "Ms. Bennett, do you understand that this document disinherits your daughter completely?" "I understand completely. That is my explicit intention. And you're making this decision of your own free will, without coercion or undue influence?" "Entirely my own decision, based on circumstances detailed in the attached memorandum." She read the key provisions aloud for the record. Her voice was steady, professional, but I heard the significance in each word. "I, Nora Bennett, being of sound mind and body, do hereby revoke all previous wills and codicils. I leave my entire estate, including my residence at 4217 Maple Rest Drive, Austin, Texas, and all financial assets to the Central Texas Veterans Support Foundation." Then the critical addition. "I specifically and intentionally make no provision for my daughter, Chloe Bennett Reed, for reasons detailed in the attached memorandum." The memorandum was 3 pages. Clinical, detailed, devastating. The argument about money. The coffee Chloe insisted I drink. The hospitalization. The toxicology report showing deliberate poisoning with benzodiazepines and antihistamines. My reasonable belief that Chloe and Mason attempted to end my life for financial gain. Medical records attached. Dates, times, facts. Sarah Chen performed her verification. "Ms. Bennett, I need to confirm your identity and mental competence. Do you understand what document you're signing?" "Yes. It's my last will and testament, revoking all previous wills. My estate goes to the Central Texas Veterans Support Foundation. Are you under any medication that might impair your judgment?" "No, I'm completely clear-minded." I signed each copy slowly, deliberately. My signature was steady, no tremor, no hesitation. Sarah applied her notary seal. Robert and Linda signed as witnesses, confirming my lucid demeanor. Margaret's office camera recorded everything. Standard procedure, but also additional proof I'd need later. 2 days passed. I attended what I told Chloe was a follow-up doctor's appointment. Actually, I met Brian Cole to review surveillance footage. When I returned home mid-afternoon, I had mail and documents in hand. I walked through the front door, entered the kitchen, and placed everything on the counter, including the will folder positioned with the law firm letterhead visible. Corner exposed beneath other papers, not hidden, not forgotten, staged. I retreated to my bedroom and waited. Chloe arrived home an hour later. I heard her car, her footsteps, the refrigerator opening. Standard routine, then silence, the kind that precedes discovery. Through my surveillance feed, I watched her approach the counter, reach for water, notice the documents. Freeze. Her hand hovered over the law firm letterhead. She glanced toward the stairs, checking for me, then picked up the folder. She read, standing. I watched her face drain of color, watched her other hand rise to her mouth, watched her knees buckle. She grabbed the counter for support. She pulled out her phone. Her fingers shook so badly she had to try twice to unlock it. "Mason, get home now." 20 minutes later, his truck screeched into the driveway. He came through the front door, still wearing his jacket, moving fast. Chloe thrust the will at him. He read, standing, flipping pages quickly, then slowing at the memorandum. His jaw clenched. He set the document down with excessive care, like it might detonate. Their voices were low, urgent. I couldn't make out words through my bedroom door, but I didn't need to. The surveillance system captured everything. The knock came 10 minutes later. Controlled, professional, not aggressive, not timid. I opened the door. Mason stood there, and I saw the moment he registered the change in me. No frailty, no confusion, just level eyes and straight posture. "Nora, we need to talk." Chloe found something disturbing. "A will? There must be some mistake." "There's no mistake. That's my new will. Properly executed and filed." He tried reasoning first. "They were family. They cared for me. This charity didn't even know me." When that failed, his tone shifted. "You're making decisions that affect everyone in this house. Decisions based on what? Hospital confusion, medication effects. I'm making decisions based on being poisoned." The toxicology report was very clear. Benzodiazepines and antihistamines don't spontaneously appear in coffee. His mask cracked. "You can't prove anything. You're an old woman with health problems making accusations." Chloe appeared behind him, tears streaming. "Mom, how could you think we'd hurt you?" "Because you did. And now you'll get nothing from it." Mason stepped forward, aggressive now, his finger jabbing toward my chest without touching. "We'll contest this will. We'll prove you're not competent. We'll get doctors to testify. You're paranoid, delusional." I didn't move. "Try it. I have evidence you don't know about. I have documentation you can't imagine. And I have time." Chloe dropped to her knees on the hallway carpet, literally hands clasped, theatrical and desperate. "We owe $180,000. Without inheritance, we'll lose everything. Please." The number hung in the air. Confirmation. She knew I knew. "You should have thought of that before you tried to kill me for it." "If you would just help us one more time." "I'm done helping. I'm done being your solution. I'm done being your victim." Mason pulled her up roughly. "We'll contest it. We'll sue. We'll make your life miserable." I nearly died. "You already made my life miserable. Now it's my turn. You're a vindictive old woman. I'm a woman who survived attempted murder. Get out of my room." Chloe tried one more appeal. "So that's it? Years of being your daughter and you just cut me off? Years of being your mother and you just tried to end my life? Yes, that's it." Mason's hand clamped on her arm. "Come on. She's not worth it." I stepped back, hand on the doorknob. "No, Mason. I'm worth exactly $850,000. And you'll never see a penny of it." I closed the door, stood there, listening to Mason's footsteps storming down the stairs, Chloe's sobbing following. The front door slammed. Through my window, I watched Mason's truck peel out, tires screeching on asphalt. Chloe left 10 minutes later. The house settled into silence. I returned to my desk, pulled up the surveillance footage on my computer, their faces when reading the will, Mason's threats, Chloe's breakdown, her implicit admission about the debt, all recorded, time-stamped, backed up to cloud storage. I downloaded the files, sent copies to Margaret and Brian. Evidence, documentation, proof. First strike delivered. Not impulsive, not emotional, calculated, strategic, cold. They wanted to fight. I'd give them a fight on my terms with my advantages. They'd tried to eliminate me for money. Now they'd watch that money disappear, untouchable beyond their desperate grasp. Outside, dusk settled over Austin. The house was mine again, quiet and still. Tomorrow I'd call Margaret about eviction proceedings. If they couldn't pay market rate rent, they'd have to leave. But tonight, I simply sat in the silence they'd tried to make permanent. And I planned my next move. Brian Cole's call came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing surveillance footage from the previous night. His voice had that careful tone investigators use when delivering bad news. "Nora, we have a problem. Mason's been meeting with a psychologist named Lawrence Brennan." I set down my coffee. "Psychologist for what?" "Not therapy. Brennan has a reputation. He writes diagnoses for whoever pays. I think Mason's trying to get you declared incompetent." The strategy was clear immediately. Invalidate the will by claiming I wasn't mentally capable when I signed it. Clever. Unethical, but clever. Can he do that? He can try. With a convenient diagnosis, they could petition for guardianship, challenge your will based on mental incapacity. I drove to Brian's office within the hour. He'd spread surveillance photos across his desk like evidence at trial. Mason entering Brennan's building, sitting in the waiting area, leaving with papers. Brian had pulled Brennan's history. Lost hospital privileges 3 years ago, after allegations of providing convenient disability diagnoses for insurance fraud. "He's basically a diagnosis for hire," Brian explained. Through my home surveillance system, I'd been noticing other signs. Chloe had visited Patricia Walters next door twice in the past week. Through the cameras, I'd seen them talking on Patricia's porch, Chloe gesturing, Patricia looking concerned. They were building a narrative. The confused old woman, the worried daughter. I called Margaret Davis from Brian's office. "I need a comprehensive psychiatric evaluation, the most thorough one available." "Preemptive documentation," she said immediately. "Smart. I'll refer you to Dr. Patricia Hendris, board-certified forensic specialist. If Mason tries to claim incompetence, we'll already have professional rebuttal." Dr. Hendris's office was in the medical district, all neutral colors and abstract art. She was 61, gray-haired, skeptical in the way good psychiatrists are. "Ms. Bennett, why are you seeking this evaluation?" "I want documentation that I'm of sound mind. My daughter is likely to claim otherwise." "That's unusual. Most people in your situation avoid evaluation. Most people haven't been through what I've been through. I want the truth documented before lies can take root." The evaluation took 3 sessions over a week. Cognitive testing, drawing clock faces, recalling word lists, solving problems, mental status examination, life history interview. She was thorough, professional, probing, exactly what I needed. Her report arrived via encrypted email. "Ms. Nora Bennett demonstrates full cognitive capacity, intact memory, logical reasoning, and appropriate judgment. She shows no signs of dementia, delirium, or any condition that would impair her ability to make legal or financial decisions. Her concerns about family members appear reality-based, not delusional." The document was detailed, notarized, unassailable. I filed copies with Margaret, Brian, and my safe deposit box. Meanwhile, Brian intensified surveillance on Mason and Brennan. 3 days after my final session with Dr. Hendris, Brian called again. "They're meeting tomorrow. Coffee shop on the outskirts. Strip mall location. Mason thinks it's private." We coordinated carefully. Brian positioned himself inside the coffee shop with his laptop and a tablet case containing professional directional microphone equipment. Texas is a one-party consent state, and I was authorizing the recording. I parked outside with clear view through the window. Mason arrived first, chose a booth in the back. Brennan came 5 minutes later, balding, rumpled suit, the look of someone whose ethics had been for sale long enough to show wear. They ordered coffee, then Mason slid an envelope across the table. Through the window, I photographed the exchange. Brennan checked inside discreetly but obviously, then pocketed it. Cash payment, no paper trail. Brian's equipment captured everything. Mason, I need this evaluation to show she can't make decisions. Severe dementia. Brennan, I can document cognitive decline, memory impairment, inability to manage finances. Mason, how much? Brennan, $5,000 for the evaluation, written report, and court testimony if needed. Mason, and you can make it convincing? Brennan, I've done hundreds of these assessments. I know exactly what courts look for. The conversation continued. Mason mentioned filing for emergency psychiatric hold. Brennan advised on triggering involuntary evaluation. They discussed tactics for guardianship proceedings. Every word was recorded, time-stamped, backed up to cloud storage before they'd finished their coffee. I had them. That afternoon, I invited Patricia Walters over. She came hesitantly, clearly uncomfortable. I made coffee, steady hands, coherent conversation, and showed her Dr. Hendriss's evaluation report. Patricia, I want you to know I'm of sound mind. What Chloe and Mason are telling you isn't true, and I can prove it. She shifted in her chair. Nora, I need to tell you something. Chloe came to me last week. She said you've been confused, forgetting things. What did she say specifically? That you wander around at night, that you've accused them of trying to hurt you. She seemed very concerned. Patricia, do I seem confused to you right now? She paused, studying me. No, you seem perfectly clear. Actually, you seem sharper than usual. That's because I am clear. And I'd appreciate if you'd document that observation in writing. She emailed me a brief statement that evening. Met with Nora Bennett on May 15th. She appeared lucid, coherent and mentally sharp. Conversation was logical and appropriate. One more piece of evidence. Margaret Bryan and I met in her conference room to review everything. I sat at the head of the table now, not the side. This was my operation. You've successfully defended against the incompetence attack, Margaret said. The question is whether to go on offense with this recording. What are my options? We could report Brennan to the licensing board, potentially sue Mason for defamation and conspiracy, or we keep it in reserve as leverage. Keep it for leverage. I want them to hang themselves completely before I use everything I have. Margaret drafted a letter delivered by certified mail. Legal notification that Nora Bennett had been evaluated by a board-certified psychiatrist and found fully competent. Any attempt to file false claims about mental capacity would be met with legal action, including defamation suits and potential criminal charges for conspiracy to commit fraud. The letter didn't mention the recording. That was my ace. Through surveillance, I watched Mason receive it 3 days later. His face darkened as he read. He immediately pulled out his phone, paced the driveway. I couldn't hear his side of the conversation, but his body language screamed frustration and fear. That night, Chloe and Mason fought. The surveillance system captured it clearly. Chloe. This letter says they'll sue us if we claim she's incompetent. Mason. Ha, she knows. Chloe. How does she know? Mason. Calm down. She's guessing. She can't know about Brennan. Chloe. What if she does? What if she recorded something? Mason. She's an old woman. She doesn't have the capability for that kind of surveillance. I almost laughed. An old woman. They still underestimated me. The next morning, I called Margaret and Brian to my house. We sat in my office, the same room where this had started with Mason's investment pitch months ago. So we've blocked their attempt to declare me incompetent. What's next? Margaret leaned forward. Legally, you have grounds to evict them. They're living in your home without a lease, without paying rent. How fast can we move on that? In Texas, we can file this week. If they refuse to leave or pay rent, we can have them out in 60 days, Brian added. And their financial situation means they can't afford market rent. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Then we file. No more living in my house while plotting against me. Margaret pulled out the paperwork. Demand for rent or possession. Market rate $2,800 per month. Due within 10 days or face eviction proceedings. I signed the document. Margaret filed it that afternoon. The counterattack was complete. Now came the siege. Travis County Justice Court felt appropriately impersonal. Beige walls, fluorescent lights. The mechanical efficiency of law without emotion. I sat beside Margaret Davis at the plaintiff's table. Across the aisle, Chloe and Mason sat with their attorney, Laura Brennan, who looked like she already knew she'd lose. Judge Maria Torres entered. We stood. She reviewed the case file with methodical precision. Margaret presented our evidence, property deed showing sole ownership, documentation that Chloe and Mason had no written lease, certified mail receipt showing they'd received demand for market rate rent, their refusal to pay or vacate. Laura Brennan tried her defense. Your Honor, this is a family dispute being disguised as a landlord-tenant issue. Ms. Bennett is retaliating against her daughter for personal reasons. Judge Torres didn't look up from the documents. Does Ms. Bennett own this property free and clear? Yes, Your Honor, I confirmed. Paid in full 20 years ago. And Ms. Reed and Mr. Reed reside there without lease or rental agreement? Correct. They've lived there 2 years without paying anything. Do your clients have a written lease? Judge Torres asked Laura directly. No, Your Honor, but has Ms. Bennett accepted rent payments in the past? No, but this appears to be, then she's entitled to demand rent now. Texas. Property code is clear. Judge Torres signed the order with decisive strokes. 30 days to either pay market rate rent of $2,800 per month plus $2,800 deposit or vacate the property. Failure to comply would result in sheriff-enforced eviction. The ruling took 8 minutes. Chloe started crying. Mason's fist clenched white on the table. Outside the courthouse, Mason intercepted us on the steps. Margaret moved between us, but I stopped. Turned to face him deliberately. You're really going to throw your own daughter out on the street? You tried to throw me in a grave. The street is generous by comparison. I'll tell everyone what kind of mother you are. Tell anyone who'll listen. I have documentation of what kind of daughter I have. Back in Margaret's office, Brian joined us. He spread financial intelligence reports across the conference table, every creditor Mason owed money to. They all think Mason has assets, Brian explained. Your house is collateral, inheritance expectations. What if they knew the truth? I authorized the information campaign immediately. Over the next week, manila envelopes arrived at lending institutions across Texas. Inside each, copies of the new will showing Chloe's disinheritance, the eviction court order, public records documenting Mason's total debt load, clear evidence he had no actual claim to my estate. Facts only. No threats. Let the creditors draw their own conclusions. Robert Castellano, the private lender owed $37,000, was first to react. Through surveillance, I watched Mason take the call. His face went from confident to ashen in 30 seconds. Robert. Mason, we need to talk about your loan. Mason. I'm good for it. You know I'm good for it. Robert, really? Because I just learned you're being evicted and your inheritance is gone. What exactly are you good for? Mason. That's a misunderstanding. My mother-in-law is just... Robert. I don't care about family drama. I care about my $37,000 you have 1 week. Mason tried everything. Personal loans, rejected. Other private lenders. They'd heard about his situation. Loans in Chloe's name. Her credit was equally destroyed. He even researched bankruptcy, but that would discharge debts while leaving them homeless anyway. The financial pressure crushed them both. But Chloe broke first. She came to my office on a Thursday afternoon when Mason was out. Knocked timidly. When I opened the door, she couldn't make eye contact. Mom, please. We have nowhere to go. We can't afford rent anywhere. If you evict us, we'll be living in our car. I kept my voice level. You tried to kill me. Why would I care where you live? I was desperate. We owe so much money. Her voice cracked. It was Mason's idea. He said you were going to die soon anyway, that we were just speeding up the inevitable. I didn't want to do it, but we're so far in debt. And she stopped, realizing what she'd said. My phone was recording in my pocket. One-party consent. Completely legal. Thank you for that admission, I said quietly. Her face drained of all color. Are you recording this? Yes. You just confessed to attempted murder. Through surveillance that evening, I watched Mason's reaction when Chloe told him. He exploded, not at me, but at her. You admitted it. You actually told her it was us. I didn't mean to. She was asking questions and You confessed. You actually confessed to attempted murder. Their relationship disintegrated under pressure. They barely spoke after that. Mason was on his phone constantly. Chloe packed and unpacked boxes in cycles of indecision. On day 25 of the 30-day deadline, Margaret sent the final notice. You have 5 days to comply with court order or face sheriff-enforced eviction. Mason tried one last threat. He approached me in the kitchen, my kitchen, in my house. If you go through with this eviction, I'll claim elder abuse. I'll tell authorities you're being neglectful, that you need oversight. I almost smiled. I have a psychiatric evaluation proving my competence. I have surveillance footage showing your abuse of me. And now I have a recording of Chloe admitting you poisoned me. Please make those claims. Give me a reason to send everything to the district attorney. His face went slack. He finally understood how thoroughly outmaneuvered he was. 5 days, I said. Leave voluntarily, and I consider not pressing criminal charges. Force the sheriff to drag you out, and I send every piece of evidence I have to the police and prosecutors. The choice is yours. Day 29. I watched from my bedroom window as Mason loaded his truck. He slammed boxes, threw belongings carelessly. Chloe cried as she carried items to her car. Neighbors watched from their yards. The spectacle was impossible to hide. I felt no triumph, just cold satisfaction. They were being purged, but I wasn't done. The eviction solved one problem. Criminal charges would solve the rest. I picked up my phone, dialed Brian Cole. Send everything we have to the district attorney's office. Medical records, surveillance footage, recordings, everything. It's time to finish this. 2 weeks after they left, I walked into the Travis County District Attorney's office with Margaret Davis and Brian Cole. We carried 3 boxes of organized evidence. Ada Jennifer Morrison's office smelled like coffee and old case files. She was 43, sharp-eyed, with a reputation for prosecuting elder abuse cases. She gestured to her conference table. Show me what you have. Brian arranged folders methodically. Medical evidence, surveillance evidence, financial evidence, conspiracy evidence, confession evidence. Each tab labeled, each document indexed. Jennifer opened the medical folder first. Toxicology reports, hospital records, Dr. Mitchell's assessment. She read slowly, professionally, but I saw her eyebrows rise. This is extremely comprehensive for a civilian investigation, almost too comprehensive. Is that a problem? It could be if anything was obtained illegally. She looked at Brian. Walk me through your methods. Brian had anticipated this. One-party consent recordings, legal in Texas. Cameras installed by me in my home's common areas. Financial records obtained via authorized investigation. Everything was by the book. Jennifer pressed for 20 minutes. Brian answered every challenge. Finally, she nodded. All right. Let's look at the medical evidence. She read Dr. Mitchell's report aloud. Benzodiazepine concentration 3.2x therapeutic levels combined with diphenhydramine at toxic doses. This combination in a 64-year-old female with hypertension could reasonably be expected to cause death. She looked up at me. This isn't attempted poisoning. This is attempted murder. That's what Dr. Mitchell told me in the hospital. She moved to the surveillance folder, video clips, audio recordings. She watched Chloe serving me coffee, her nervous movements afterward. She listened to fragments. If she knows. It's too late now. Then Chloe's recorded confession. Jennifer played it twice. It was Mason's idea. He said you were going to die soon anyway. We needed the money. I didn't want to, but we're so far in debt. Jennifer paused the playback. This is admissible. This is damning. And this is enough for arrest warrants, she called in Detective Maria Hernandez from Austin PD. Maria, methodical, tired eyes of someone who'd seen too many family cases, was briefed. Elder abuse, attempted murder, conspiracy. The victim did half our work for us, Jennifer said. Maria interviewed me for 2 hours, testing consistency from every angle. My answers never changed, because they were true. Subject extremely credible. Timeline consistent. Evidence supports narrative. 3 days later, Maria and Jennifer sat in Judge Michael Patterson's chambers with warrant applications. I wasn't present, Margaret told me after. The judge reviewed everything, asked a few questions, and signed. These are solid. Execute them. Brian had tracked Chloe and Mason to a budget motel on Highway 290, paying weekly in cash, living out of their cars. Maria planned dawn arrests. She called me at 6:30 a.m. Ms. Bennett, stay home. I'll notify you when it's done. I waited, drank coffee, watched the clock. At 9:15, my phone rang. Ms. Bennett, Amanda, Chloe Reed, and Mason Reed have been arrested and charged with attempted murder and conspiracy. They're in custody at Travis County Jail. I thanked her, hung up, and sat in my quiet house. No celebration, just the release of a breath I'd held for months. The bail hearing was the next morning. Margaret drove me downtown. I sat in the gallery, invisible to them but present. Judge Sarah Mendoza presided. They were brought in separately, both in orange. Chloe looked hollow. Mason stood rigid, defiant. A.D. Morrison argued flight risk, searches for one-way flights, no employment, facing long sentences. Public defenders tried community routes and no prior record. Judge Mendoza was unmoved. Bail is set at $500,000 each. They couldn't afford it. Back to jail, separate, no contact. Local news picked it up that evening. Daughter and son-in-law arrested in attempted murder of mother for inheritance plot. My name was withheld. Their mugshots were not. Patricia Walters called. Nora, if you need anything, testimony, support, I'm here. That night, I stood in my repainted kitchen, the same room Chloe had served the poisoned coffee. My phone buzzed. Text from Margaret, prelim next week. They'll likely waive and go straight to trial. Are you ready? I typed back. I've been ready since I woke up in that hospital. Late August heat pressed down on Austin like a weight. Outside courtroom 3C, I waited in a gray suit Margaret helped me choose. Credible. Stable, she'd said. Inside, jury selection murmured on, 12 citizens who'd decide my daughter's fate. Ada Morrison found me. You'll be called this afternoon. Remember, clear, factual, no emotion. Let the evidence speak. I nodded. I'd rehearsed for weeks. Opening statements at 10 a.m. Morrison faced the jury. 7 women, 5 men. This is a case about greed, desperation, and betrayal. The evidence will show that Chloe Reed and Mason Reed attempted to murder Nora Bennett, Chloe's 64-year-old mother, by poisoning her with a lethal combination of medications. Why? For inheritance. For an $850,000 house they wanted now, rather than waiting for nature to take its course. She paced slowly. Ms. Bennett trusted her daughter. She let her live in her home. She supported her. And she was repaid with poison in her morning coffee. At the defense table, Chloe cried. Mason stared, stone-faced. Robert Hayes, Chloe's public defender, pled desperation and Mason's influence. Terrible mistakes, not intent to kill. Linda Vasquez, Mason's attorney, went hard. Mason is innocent. Chloe acted alone. They were already turning on each other. Dr. James Mitchell testified first, explaining toxicology. Benzos 3 times therapeutic. Diphenhydramine at toxic level. In my professional opinion, likely fatal but for prompt response. Hayes tried accident. Mitchell dismantled it. Dosage and combo indicate intent. Detective Hernandez walked the jury through the investigation. Photos of motel meds. Searches. Lethal dose benzos elderly. How long for poisoning to kill, Texas inheritance laws. Jurors leaned forward. Brian Cole testified about surveillance. Defense objected. Judge Mendoza ruled, homeowner installed, common areas, legal. Objection overruled. They played the footage, kitchen whispers, If she knows? Too late now. Then Chloe's recorded confession. The courtroom went silent. It was Mason's idea. We needed the money. I didn't want to, but we're so far in debt. Mason shot Chloe a look of pure fury. After lunch, I testified. The argument. The coffee Chloe insisted I drink. 20 minutes later, room spinning. Calling 911 before darkness closed in. Hayes tried sympathy. Do you love your daughter? I love the daughter I thought I had. I don't know the person who poisoned me. He floated vindictiveness. The will. The eviction. I changed my will after I learned she tried to poison me. That's not punishment. That's protection. Vasquez tried spying. I installed security after someone tried to kill me. That's called survival. Against advice, Chloe testified. She cried, apologized, claimed only sleeping pills. Morrison buried that on cross. Then why the searches for lethal combinations the day before? No answer. Mason denied everything, until Morrison played the recording of him buying a fake diagnosis from Dr. Brennan. The jury's faces hardened. Closings were blunt. Morrison. They tried to murder a 64-year-old woman for money. They failed only because she was strong enough to call 911. No remorse until caught. This is not a family tragedy. This is attempted murder for financial gain. The jury deliberated 7 hours. I waited in the building. Finally, verdict. We filed back in. Will the defendants please rise? Chloe trembled. Mason locked his jaw. 4-person. In the matter of State of Texas versus Chloe Reed, Count 1, attempted murder, guilty. Count 2, conspiracy to commit murder, guilty. State of Texas versus Mason Reed, Count 1, attempted murder, guilty. Count 2, conspiracy to commit murder, guilty. Judge Mendoza thanked the jury, set sentencing for 2 weeks. Bailiffs took them away. Chloe looked back and mouthed, "I'm sorry." I met her eyes and nodded once. Acknowledgement, not forgiveness. On the courthouse steps, Margaret asked, "How do you feel?" "Like I can breathe again." 2 weeks later, sentencing. Same courtroom, now certainty instead of dread. Shackles clinked as they entered. Chloe looked older than 36. Mason refused to blink. Probation officer Rachel Chen. Chloe. No record, some remorse. Mason, minimal remorse, blames others. Recommendations. Mid-range for Chloe, upper for Mason. Ada Morrison. Premeditated attempted murder of an elderly woman by her own daughter and son-in-law, for money. Research, administration, cover-up. The state recommends 15 years for Chloe Reed and 18 years for Mason Reed. Defense pled pressure, manipulation. It rang hollow. Judge Mendoza invited me to speak. I walked to the podium. I'd written a statement but didn't need it. Your Honor, when I drank that coffee, I trusted my daughter. That trust was my vulnerability. They exploited it, not just to steal from me, but to end my life. I survived by chance and quick action. They showed no remorse until they were caught. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was calculated, planned, executed. I don't ask for revenge. I ask for justice proportional to what they attempted. My life. Chloe was given the opportunity to speak. She stood trembling, tears streaming. Your Honor, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry to my mother, to this court, to everyone I've hurt. I was desperate. I was stupid. I was wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want my mother to know I loved her, and I destroyed that love through my own actions. Mason's turn. His attorney had begged him to show remorse. He didn't. Your Honor, I maintain I had no knowledge of any poisoning. I've been convicted based on circumstantial evidence and my wife's false testimony. Judge Mendoza's expression hardened. Mason had just made his situation worse. The judge took his time, reviewing documents in silence. Then he looked at both defendants. I've considered everything presented. This was a premeditated attempt to murder a vulnerable elderly woman for financial gain. The violation of familial trust makes this particularly heinous. He turned to Chloe first. Chloe Reed, you are hereby sentenced to 12 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, with eligibility for parole after serving half your sentence. You are further ordered to pay restitution to Nora Bennett in the amount of $125,000. Chloe collapsed. Her attorney steadied her. Mason Reed, you are the architect of this conspiracy. Your lack of remorse demonstrates you pose a significant danger. You are sentenced to 15 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, with eligibility for parole after serving 2/3 of your sentence. You are ordered to pay restitution to Nora Bennett in the amount of $125,000. The gavel fell. Final. Irreversible. Defendants remanded to custody pending transfer to state facility. This court is adjourned. Bailiffs approached. Chloe looked back at me one last time, mouthed, "I'm sorry." I met her eyes, nodded once. Acknowledgement, not forgiveness. Mason stared straight ahead as they led him away. In the courthouse hallway, Ada Jennifer Morrison shook my hand. "Justice was served today, Ms. Bennett. I hope this brings you some peace." "It brings closure. That's more valuable than peace." Margaret drove me home. We didn't talk much. Words weren't necessary. First thing I did when I arrived home was change every lock in the house. Front door, back door, side entrance, garage. New keys, new mechanisms. A physical act of reclaiming my space. Each lock I installed felt like sealing off the past. That afternoon, movers arrived, creditors exercising their rights to Chloe and Mason's belongings. I watched from my window as strangers carried out furniture, electronics, boxes, payment for debts that would never be fully satisfied. After they left, I walked through the empty rooms. In Chloe's former bedroom, I found one item they'd missed, a photograph. Chloe at age 7, gap-toothed smile, holding a Valentine's card. "To Mommy, I love you." I stared at it for a long time. That little girl was gone. The woman who poisoned me had replaced her. But this photograph was from before. I didn't throw it away. I placed it in a drawer in my office, not displayed but preserved, a memory of who she was before she became who she is. That evening, I sat in my living room. The house was quieter than before, but it was peaceful quiet. I made dinner, ate at the table, watched the news, normal activities. But they felt different now, lighter, free. 1 week later, I sat on my back porch with morning coffee. The mail carrier arrived. Among the bills was an envelope from the Texas Department of Criminal Justice Mountain View Unit, Chloe's facility. I recognized her handwriting. My first thought was not to open it. My second thought was that avoiding it gave her power. I opened it, 3 pages, blue ink, tear stains visible on the paper. She wrote about prison, the routine, the boredom, the fear. She wrote about regret, specific memories from her childhood, times I was there for her. She wrote about understanding now what desperation made her do. She asked if I could ever forgive her, if I'd ever visit, if there was any possibility of redemption. She ended, "I don't expect you to respond. I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that I finally understand what I did to you. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." I read it twice. I didn't feel anger. I felt recognition. She was genuinely suffering consequences and genuinely remorseful. I folded the letter, placed it on the table. Later that day, I met Margaret for lunch. Downtown restaurant, quiet booth. I showed her the letter. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "I don't know. Part of me wants to forgive her. Part of me never can." Those aren't mutually exclusive. You can acknowledge her remorse without forgiving the act. You can have compassion for her suffering without forgetting she caused it. We talked about the house. I'd been considering selling it. Too many memories. Every room has echoes. Where would you go? Somewhere smaller. I don't need 3,000 square feet anymore. That afternoon, I drove to the Central Texas Veterans Support Foundation office. Small building, modest furnishings, walls covered with thank you letters from veterans. Sarah Martinez, the director, greeted me warmly. "I don't want to wait until I'm gone," I told her. "I want to start now." I propose selling my house and donating a substantial portion to the foundation. I want to fund a specific program supporting victims of elder abuse and family violence. People like me who survive but need resources to rebuild. Sarah was moved. "Ms. Bennett, we could create a named fund. helped dozens of families. The next day, Realtor Tom Bradford walked through my house with me. We discussed market value, timeline for sale. "This is a beautiful property," he said. It was beautiful. "It can be again, for someone else." He showed me 3 condos. The third felt right. 200 square feet, 10th floor view of downtown Austin. Manageable, secure, no yard work, no memories. This one. Make an offer. That evening, I sat at my desk with Chloe's letter. I pulled out stationery and wrote a response. 1 page. "Chloe, I received your letter. I believe your remorse is genuine. I also believe the damage you did can't be undone. I'm not ready to visit. I may never be ready, but I acknowledge you're serving your time and facing consequences. I hope you use these 12 years to become someone better than the person who poisoned my coffee. That's all I can offer right now." Mommy sealed it, addressed it to Mountain View Unit. Over the next few days, I decluttered methodically. Donations to charity, discarding items with bad associations, carefully packing what I wanted to keep. While packing my office, I found Chloe's childhood photo again. I looked at it for a long time, the 7-year-old with the gap-toothed smile. I carefully framed it, packed it with important documents, not to display but to keep. That little girl existed. She was real and loving. What happened later doesn't erase what came before. Patricia Walters invited me to a neighborhood dinner. I almost declined, but I accepted. The evening was surprisingly pleasant. Neighbors were kind, treated me normally. I realized I'd been so focused on justice that I forgot about life. This is what moving forward looks like. Small connections, normal interactions, rebuilding routine. 2 weeks after Chloe's letter arrived, Sarah Martinez called. "Nora, the board approved the fund. We're calling it the Nora Bennett Elder Justice Fund. Your donation will help abuse victims with legal support, housing assistance, counseling services." I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Purpose. Not revenge purpose, but constructive purpose. Late September evening, I sat on my back porch one last time as owner of this house, September 28th. The sale was pending. The condo purchase in process. The foundation donation being structured. I'd mailed my response to Chloe, brief, honest, without false promises. I'd made my peace with what happened. Not forgiveness exactly, but acceptance. "They tried to kill me!" I survived. They faced justice. I reclaimed my life. I thought about the past 8 months. The poisoning, the investigation, the trial, the justice, the aftermath. Chloe in prison, Mason in prison, my house being sold, my new condo, my charitable work ahead. I didn't feel happy. Happiness seemed too simple. I felt settled. Complete. The coffee cup in my hand was almost empty. Coffee I made without fear. I stood, walked inside, washed the cup, turned off the lights. Tomorrow I'd meet with movers. Tomorrow I'd start packing for the new place. Tomorrow I'd take another step forward. But tonight, I simply existed. A survivor. Not a victim, not an avenger. Just a woman who refused to let attempted murder define the rest of her life. I closed the back door, locked it with my new key, and headed to bed. The house was quiet. The future was uncertain, but it was my future, and that was enough. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments.